The talks surrounding Shedeur Sanders continue to swirl, and it looks like the New York Football Jets may be trying to throw their hat into the Shedeur Sanders market. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated as always. Let's get right into things. There's been much talk about Shedeur Sanders, obviously. There are a bunch of people in the Cleveland media that want nothing to do with him being there. The anybody but Shedeur Mafia has been hard at work all off season, scratching and clawing, doing anything they can to get any other quarter.
The Cleveland Browns might be on the verge of making one of the most confusing decisions in recent NFL memory. Just months after handing the keys to their offense to a young quarterback who showed real promise down the stretch, reports are surfacing that the team is entertaining trade calls for their potential franchise guy. And the team at the center of all this speculation? The New York Jets. But here's the thing, nobody can seem to agree on whether this is a real possibility or just media noise designed to stir up controversy. Let's break down what's actually happening and why this whole situation might be even messier than it appears. It all started when Tony Rizzo of ESPN Cleveland dropped a bombshell. According to Rizzo, the Browns are getting calls about Shedeur Sanders, and he doesn't think the quarterback room is going to stay intact through training camp. The radio host made it clear he believes the Browns don't think he's the guy, which sent shockwaves through the fan base. But here's where it gets interesting. Rizzo also said nothing is imminent right now, just that calls are being made. Meanwhile, longtime Browns reporter Mary Kay Cabot pushed back, saying the team isn't actively shopping Sanders and hasn't changed its stance on the quarterback competition. So who's right? That depends on who you trust. But the sheer fact that these rumors are gaining traction tells you something about the instability surrounding this franchise. The New York Jets have emerged as the most logical landing spot if Sanders does get moved. And honestly, it makes a ton of sense when you look at their situation. Geno Smith is currently the presumed starter, but he's 35 years old and currently under investigation after his ex-partner accused him of battery. Behind him? Bailey Zapp, Brady Cook, and Cade Klubnik, names that don't exactly inspire confidence. One ESPN analyst put it bluntly, the Jets could be desperate sooner than people think. With Sanders, they'd get stability at the most important position in sports. And let's be real, New York has never been shy about making splashy moves. But is this actually something the Browns would entertain? That's where things get complicated. Here's the thing that doesn't add up. Why would Cleveland trade away a quarterback they've already invested time, energy, and effort into developing? Especially when everyone around the organization seems to be singing his praises. Todd Monken, the new head coach, has been on record saying he likes what Shedeur has done at camp. Andrew Berry, the general manager, has talked about his progression and even called him a naturally accurate passer. His quarterback coaches have said he's come miles and it's night and day from where he started. Monken even acknowledged that the gap between Sanders and Watson closed significantly from the first OTAs to the end. So why would you get all the way to training camp, see real competition brewing, and then just hand the job to someone else without letting it play out? But some people in the Cleveland media have been pushing hard against Sanders from the start. There's a contingent that wants nothing to do with him being there, and they've been working all offseason to get another quarterback in the building to ensure Shedeur never sees the field in a Browns uniform. It's almost like they're running away from competition instead of embracing it. And that's where you have to start questioning motives. Are these legitimate football evaluations or just personal biases showing through? Because when you actually look at the facts, the narrative that Sanders is some kind of problem doesn't hold up. Then you've got the circus narrative that keeps following this family. Shedeur's brother Shiloh made headlines when he made some questionable comments toward reporter Mary Kay Cabot, which only added fuel to the fire for critics who say the Sanders family brings too much attention. There's this perception that wherever Deion Sanders' sons go, drama follows. But here's the reality check, none of that has anything to do with what Shedeur does on the field. When you separate the noise from the actual football, you've got a young quarterback who's shown real growth, has the support of his coaches and teammates, and is competing for a starting job. And that brings us to the people who actually matter. His teammates have been overwhelmingly positive. Tyson Campbell has said highly great things about him. Denzel Boston and the young guys love him. Nobody in that locker room has come out and said Shedeur was a distraction last year. In fact, what you keep hearing is how much of a professional he's been, how he continues to just go in and work. Monken calls him a worker who comes in and gets after it every single day. So when people talk about locker room issues, you have to ask, who exactly is having problems? Because the ones actually in that building don't seem to have any. Here's what some folks are conveniently forgetting. Shedeur started the final 7 games of his rookie season and put up over 1,400 yards with 7 touchdowns. He earned a Pro Bowl replacement nod. For a 5th-round pick, that's legitimately impressive production. And let's be honest, if the Browns actually didn't think he was the guy, why would they even be getting trade calls in the first place? Teams don't call about quarterbacks who have no value. The fact that there's interest out there tells you other organizations see something worth pursuing. But there's a counterargument that critics keep bringing up. They point to Sanders holding the ball too long. His 3.24 seconds average time to throw was the highest in the NFL since his debut. That's a legitimate concern. You can't survive in this league if you're taking sacks and missing open reads because you're waiting for the perfect throw. And honestly, if the Browns front office is looking at that stat and wondering if he can fix it, maybe the rumors aren't completely baseless. But here's the thing, that's exactly what training camp and preseason are for. To see if players can correct their flaws against live competition. What makes this whole situation so bizarre is the timing. The Browns just drafted this kid. They've been through the Deshaun Watson nightmare, the contract, the suspension, the injury, the drama. You would think stability at the most important position would be their top priority. And yet here we are, less than 2 years into Shedeur's career, and people are already talking about moving on. It doesn't make sense from a team-building perspective unless there's something we're not being told. Unless the front office sees something in practice that's making them rethink their long-term plans. G. Bush, who's been covering this situation closely, made an interesting point. He said people need to show their work when they make these claims. If you're going to say Sanders is a problem or the locker room doesn't want him, you better have receipts. And so far, the receipts don't exist. The GM says he likes his progression. The head coach says he's competing. His coaches say he's improved dramatically. His teammates say he's a professional. So where exactly is this negativity coming from? It seems like it's coming from people who just don't want him in Cleveland, not from anyone who actually has legitimate football concerns. But let's be fair here, the outside noise isn't entirely manufactured. When you have a father like Deion Sanders, one of the most polarizing figures in sports history, there's going to be attention. And when that attention follows your son into a struggling franchise with a fanbase desperate for a savior, things get amplified. Shedeur is a lightning rod, and that's going to make him a target for criticism whether he deserves it or not. People are going to be on the left, people on the right, and things are going to get contentious in the comment sections. But as G. Bush pointed out, those comment sections don't have anything to do with what's happening on the practice field. So where do things actually stand right now? According to Mary Kay Cabot, the Browns haven't changed their stance. They're not actively shopping Sanders, and the two-way battle with Watson is set to resume when training camp kicks off. Could that change later in the summer if Watson clearly wins the job? Absolutely. But right now, the team seems committed to letting this thing play out. Todd Monken has been clear that he's not going to crown the valedictorian without seeing everyone take the test. He wants to see Sanders and Watson compete in pads, in live situations, where you can really evaluate what they bring to the table. What happens next is going to be fascinating. Training camp starts soon, and once the pads come on, we'll get a much clearer picture of where Sanders actually stands. If he continues to progress like everyone inside the building says he has, then this whole trade narrative might disappear as quickly as it surfaced. But if Watson comes out and clearly outplays him, then the front office is going to have a real decision to make. Do they keep Sanders as a backup and deal with the constant speculation? Or do they move him while his value is still relatively high and try to recoup some assets? Here's what's really going on beneath the surface of all this. The Browns are at a crossroads, and they don't even seem to know it. They've got a veteran quarterback who's making superstar money and a young quarterback who's outplaying his draft position but maybe not ready to take over just yet. And the media is eating it up because conflict sells. Every day brings a new report, a new rumor, a new angle. But here's the thing, none of that speculation actually matters to the people making decisions in Berea. What matters is what happens when they get on the practice field and start competing for real. You can't help but wonder if there's some deliberate misdirection happening here. Sometimes teams float rumors to see what kind of interest is out there. Sometimes they leak information to motivate a player or to gauge what the market would bear. And sometimes, reporters just don't have the full picture and fill in the gaps with speculation. Whatever the case, the sheer volume of talk surrounding Shedeur Sanders tells you that this story isn't going away anytime soon. Whether he stays in Cleveland or ends up in New York or somewhere else entirely, people are going to be watching every single move he makes. One thing's for certain, Shedeur Sanders is going to be playing quarterback in this league for a long time. The talent is undeniable. The work ethic is unquestioned. And the support system he has, both within the organization and from his family, is stronger than most young players get. Maybe that's why the criticism bothers his defenders so much. Because they see a kid who's doing everything right, who's improving every day, who's earning the respect of his teammates and coaches, and they can't understand why people keep trying to tear him down. At the end of the day, this might just be the cost of doing business when your last name is Sanders. Deion casts such a massive shadow that everything his sons do gets magnified. Every mistake is amplified. Every success is questioned. Every move is analyzed from a dozen different angles. And until Shedeur establishes himself as a clear-cut starter who's winning games and silencing doubters, that's just going to be the reality he has to navigate. The question isn't whether he can handle it, he's shown that he can. The question is whether the Browns are patient enough to let him grow, or whether they'll give up on him before he reaches his full potential. But what if the rumors are exactly what they appear to be? What if the Browns really are considering moving on from Sanders, and the Jets really are interested, and this whole situation is building towards something significant? Then you have to wonder what the endgame looks like. Because if you're Cleveland, you're trading away a quarterback who hasn't even had a real chance to prove himself. And if you're New York, you're betting that the circus is worth the talent. Either way, somebody's going to look really smart or really foolish when this all plays out. And let's be honest about what this really comes down to. Franchises have a long history of mismanaging quarterbacks. The Browns especially know this better than anyone. From Tim Couch to Baker Mayfield, they've had a tendency to give up on young quarterbacks before they've had enough time to develop. It's like they're allergic to patience. They'll sit through years of mediocrity with a veteran, but give them a promising young player and suddenly the clock starts ticking.
The person that turned out for is Kevin Stefanski. Everybody else is cool. Andrew Berry got a raise. Todd Monken got a new job. Shedeur got reps. I'm confused. Well, why did it work out bad for people? So I need the names of the people who it worked out bad for. Well, that doesn't really have anything to do with him. That has to do with the noise surrounding him.
But it absolutely has to do with the locker room.
Show your work. What locker room? I gave you 6 people. What?
The moment he steps on the field. It's backwards logic, and it's cost this franchise dearly over the years. There's a reason the Jets are being linked to Sanders beyond just roster need. New York has shown they're willing to take swings on quarterbacks who other teams might consider risky. They've been through the Aaron Rodgers experiment, the Sam Darnold experience, the Zach Wilson disaster. They know what it's like to have the spotlight on your quarterback, and they haven't been afraid to chase big names. Sanders fits that mold perfectly. He's a known quantity from a famous family who would immediately bring attention and, potentially, wins to a franchise that desperately needs both. But here's what nobody is talking about. What if Sanders stays in Cleveland and actually wins the job? What if he comes into training camp, outplays Watson, and forces the coaching staff to name him the starter? Then all of this trade talk looks incredibly foolish in hindsight. And it's not as far-fetched as you might think. Watson has been
by linking Shedeur Sanders to the Jets. He was quoted as saying, "The Jets could be desperate in the near future," wrote Smith on June 29th. Geno Smith has been the presumed starter. The other 3 quarterbacks on the roster, Bailey Zappi, Brady Cook, and Cade Klubnik. None of these names really move the needle or even inspire confidence if things go south with Geno Smith. They need a starter. They may see that in Sanders. The Jets' potential starting QB for 2026 is Geno Smith. However,
shell of himself since coming to Cleveland. The injuries, the suspension, the decline in play, it's all added up to a quarterback who looks nothing like the guy who was considered a top 5 player at his position just a few years ago. Sanders, on the other hand, is ascending. The trajectory is pointing in completely different directions. This whole situation feels like a test. Not just for Shedeur Sanders, but for the Browns organization itself. Are they going to make the smart long-term play and develop their young quarterback? Or are they going to chase immediate gratification and potentially watch him thrive somewhere else? Because that's what's on the line here. It's not just about one training camp or one season. It's about building something sustainable, something that can compete year after year. And the only way to do that is to get the quarterback position right and stick with your guy through the growing pains. Think about the quarterbacks who were written off early in their careers and went on to become stars. Josh Allen was considered a project, a raw talent who might never put it together. Jalen Hurts was drafted in the second round and almost traded before he became an MVP candidate. Even Geno Smith, the guy the Jets are supposedly looking to replace, was left for dead before finding a second act in Seattle. The point is, young quarterbacks take time. They need reps, they need coaching, they need the support of the organization. And when they get all those things, the results can be spectacular. What concerns me about the Sanders situation is the lack of patience. The Browns didn't draft him in the first round, so there's this sense that he's somehow less valuable, that he's expendable because he was a bargain pick. But that's the wrong way to look at it. If anything, finding a starting caliber quarterback in the 5th round is the kind of thing that builds dynasties. It gives you cap flexibility, roster depth, and a guy who knows what it's like to fight for everything he's earned. You don't throw that away just
the person that got a chance to take the test. We don't know actually how smart she is compared to the rest of her class. So for me, I look at it like this. It's a great opportunity for those who really want competition. We all for it because may the best man win. Let's start with this. Off bat. The thing I want to say to all individuals is, whether you agree with G. Bush or you don't agree with G. Bush, when I bring...
because you have a veteran who's still technically on the roster. Training camp is going to be absolutely electric when it finally gets going. The competition between Watson and Sanders is going to be the story of the summer for the Browns. Every throw is going to be scrutinized. Every huddle is going to be analyzed. Every sideline interaction is going to become a headline. And if Sanders performs well, the trade talk is going to seem like a distant memory. But if he struggles, if the critics are proven right, then things could get ugly fast. That's the pressure of playing quarterback in the NFL. There's no hiding, no patience, no grace period. For right now, though, all we can do is wait and see. The rumors will keep swirling, the hot takes will keep flying, and the speculation will continue to drive engagement on every platform imaginable. But eventually, the football will do the talking. When the pads come on and the bullets start flying for real, we'll see what Shedeur Sanders is really made of. We'll see if he's the future of the Cleveland Browns or just another quarterback who couldn't survive the circus. Maybe that's what makes this whole thing so compelling. It's not just about football anymore. It's about family, legacy, and the weight of carrying a famous name in a sport that devours its own. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask for any of this. He just wanted to play quarterback in the NFL. But because of who his father is, because of the attention that follows everywhere he goes, he's dealing with a level of scrutiny that most rookies never experience. And how he handles that is going to define his career. Cleveland is a tough town. They've been burned before. They've had their hopes up and their hearts broken more times than anyone can count. So it's understandable that there's skepticism when a new quarterback comes in, especially one whose last name comes with so much baggage. But eventually, the only thing that matters is what happens between the white lines. And if Shedeur Sanders continues on his current trajectory, improving every day and earning the respect of everyone in that building, the Browns might just have something special on their hands. But that wasn't the whole story. And what happens next might determine the future of this franchise for the next decade.